So I want to call to order the Concord Light Board meeting for December 13th. Our next meeting is December 20th, and then we have another one January 10th, and recurring then after. I don't remember seeing any minutes going around, but I want to check in with Warren.
Yes, I sent around minutes for August 23rd.
August 23rd.
Hoping we could vote on those.
Okay, I haven't reviewed them, but that's okay. I'm not nitpicky about minutes. Have others had an opportunity to review the August minutes?
I read through them. They're fine for me.
Okay. Alice, do you mind proposing a motion? Because I don't see
Sure.
anyone requesting edits.
I move that we approve the minutes from the December, no,
Well, August 23rd.
August 23rd. I better say 2023.
All right, do I have a second?
I second.
Great. John?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Bianca?
I can just see that picture moving.
Alice?
Yes.
All right, and I will agree as well, and that's good enough to approve the minutes.
Right.
Excellent.
Are these getting posted? They must be up there by now, right? But we've been approving a lot of minutes lately.
Yeah, I haven't double checked, but I would assume that once we
Okay.
approve them, they go up onto the website.
Okay.
First, the next topic is the director's update. Dave, you want to take this?
Yeah, before we move on, wanted to talk about the upcoming meetings. And
Okay.
in February, we have 2 meetings scheduled. One's on the 14th and one's on the 28th. And we've talked about doing the power supply meeting in February. So I would propose that we do that on the 28th at like 5 or 6 p.m. So I just wanted to kind of put it out there for the board to think about so that we can actually get this scheduled and not kick the can down the road.
That would be great. Would you mind doing some kind of doodle poll or finding? So I don't want to go through calendars with everybody right now, but let's do it over email to find availability on the 28th. Great.
Send that out later today.
Excellent. And now we'll do updates.
I just want to remind everyone that I will not be available for the next meeting. That's a travel day for me.
Okay. The 20th.
Ready for updates, Brian?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I just sent out the director's update. For some reason, you didn't get it. That apologize for that, but we're going to start with the energy management piece. Riverwalk was one of the participants in the EV Ready pilot program, and they've completed the installation of dedicated EV charging infrastructure to each of the 10 condominium owners. You might recall that we funded $25,000 worth of that. Total project cost was just over $35,000. It was good to see that come to a close. Concord Academy has also installed some level 2 charging. They have a few PHEV Chrysler Pacificas. So, you know, they're charging on site now. Unfortunately, Abode Energy Management is not renewing their contract with us to provide heat pump program services in 2024. So as a result, we've been working with HR to bring on the heating coaches as CMLP employees. So that process is going pretty smooth. So we're hoping to have a seamless transition. So cross your fingers there, but you know, Abode didn't just dropped CMLP. They basically did away with their MLP program altogether. So a little scrambling on our end, but we seem to be getting through it. The smart metering project, the metering team has continued to move forward with installations. We're over 300 meters installed at this point. They finished with Border Road and the Thoreau Hills area. Yesterday they started on the Prescott, which is formerly the Concord News. I think yesterday they installed just about 80 meters up there, and communications is going well with the meters in the system. So that's good news. They're going to continue to push forward on completing the 350 units up there, and then move over to the Forest Ridge Road area, and then down to Main Street. So that's great. We did meet with a contractor. We're looking to bring on an electrical contractor to help with the installations. The company that we met with has municipal experience and actually worked for an MLP in the metering department. So pretty good find there, and that'll be more in the first quarter of 2024. We met with Riverside of Concord Condominium. They're looking to do a community solar project, so that's something new we're working through. So we'll have a little more to report on that as things move forward. But there's 4 buildings out there, and they're looking to install one array and split it up between the 4 buildings. The level 3 DC fast charger, the crews have continued to work on the completion of that installation. The deadline is the 31st. I've been in contact with the state on that, and we've received the payment request form that's needed for submittal, and that'll allow us to get the grant funding that has been allotted for the project, and that's $100,000. You might recall we're looking at probably a total of $130,000 for the whole project. So looks like we're going to have it done in time. They did say we could submit another extension if need be, but we're trying to avoid that at all costs. And next week we'll start with the annual inventory. It's expected that the inventory will take about 3 days to complete, and then once we have that completed and in the system, we'll have the auditors out to do their spot check, and pretty standard process. Looks like that's going to happen on the 29th of December with the auditors. So that is about it for me.
Busy times. A lot of little projects. I'm very happy to hear about the abode transition going well, and I'm happy to hear about Ride Out, and I'm happy to hear about the EV charging at the condos. Those are all things that we're struggled with over the years. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll go on to Jason for the broadband update.
Hello, everyone. Piggybacking on what Dave was mentioning about inventory, I just want to thank our broadband manager, Dale Hartling, along with Carol and Matt and their teams for the help that they've been giving us. We've been working really hard at trying to make sure that all of our systems have solid integrations. That's kind of the promise from the software vendors, is that our billing system and our customer management system that we use for broadband talks to each other, but it breaks often, and there's some tweaks that need to be made. So ahead of this inventory season, Dale's been working for a couple months now with both vendors to make sure that the process is as seamless as possible, so that it cuts down on erroneous data that we have, and also it makes things a lot simpler in terms of what we have to do, saves us time. So it's one of those projects that is kind of thankless, but will pay off in the long run, because it's just a slog to get through. So I want to thank everybody for their help on that. We've begun our winter preparations, and I've had a few team meetings on that. We do have a new technician for this winter, so we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of the procedures that we have. And we're going to be doing a tabletop outage this week on Thursday, just to kind of go over the coordination that we would do if we had something happen. We got a purchase order this week or last week to purchase a new OTDR. This is a piece of equipment that we use for diagnostic and troubleshooting purposes. It tells you where there's a break in the fiber is the easiest way to explain it. But you can imagine if we have fiber underground and a rodent chews through it and we know it's broken, we obviously can't go through the entire thing. So this device will allow us to tell exactly where the problem is. The new technology that we have can be used on live fiber and to do additional diagnostics, which will really help. Sometimes we have these stubborn issues where one person is having problems and it can be really difficult to track down. So this piece of equipment will help us remediate those issues much more quickly. I did want to mention that we're going to be scheduling maintenance in early January, most likely at about 1 a.m. on a Saturday. This is our low point each week in terms of data usage. We're going to be updating the firmware on our devices and also the ONT firmware. I wanted to point out that everybody who has an ISP, whether it's Concord Broadband or not, they do these routine maintenance windows, but they don't normally inform customers unless it's going to be a very large window. So we like to be proactive just to let people know what we're doing, and we'll be publicizing it on the website, social media, and in the broadband update documents that are posted on the website. We have also, the last thing I want to mention was the fiber broadband completion report. I leave a copy of it, the summary of it in each of my monthly updates and just kind of give high level progress. But we've been working on kind of a bigger update for that with a document that will kind of outline in more detail where we are. And so again, some of these things take a lot of time because they're regulatory or involve a lot of research for technology, but I'm really proud of the progress that the team has been making on some of those objectives. And so I just want to update everybody on that. And we can either schedule a couple extra minutes at a future light board meeting in January or February, or I can just provide the report in writing and give some high level during my normal broadband update. But that's all I have right now.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll make sure to give you time on the agenda to go over that. I think it'd be helpful. Any questions for Jason? Alice?
I don't actually have a question for Jason. It was a question for Dave that I forgot to raise. I may have missed it, but I thought there was a widespread power outage last weekend in downtown. Is that not the case? I don't think I heard you give an update to that.
Yeah.
And I didn't see anything online.
Yeah, we did have a short power outage on Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. And it was basically caused by a squirrel. It was out for a little over an hour.
Yeah.
It was the Thoreau Street area, Sudbury Road, that general area.
So
Yeah.
I didn't notice it online when I got an email about it. Where do you usually post info about what your expectations are for the power outage like that? Or was it so quick you decided it wasn't important to do a notification?
Generally, when it's going to be quick like that, there's not a lot that goes out, because the crews are in, they get it done, and then we find out about it. If it's going to be a longer outage, then notification will go out. But in that particular case, it was pretty straightforward. It was a squirrel. We knew it was going to be, an hour or so, and so it caused a little bit of panic because that was the preview meeting day for a town meeting, and it happened right at the beginning of that. So,
Yeah,
not ideal, but fortunately it was quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I also was affected by that, but it was great that I actually went for a walk to go get some coffee. And on my walk, I saw all these things that you don't notice unless you're involved. Like a police woman stopped by one of the houses along my walk that I knew an elderly woman lived at, and it was a health check. It was one of those operating procedures that just happens that, most of us take for granted, but it was good to see all the things fall into place and all the operations happening smoothly. It also was one squirrel on a nice day, which, is much better than what they prepare for, which is the big storm with multiple outages. So, yeah, it was handled well.
It's just, just the only thing I was thinking is that because people know that who was on the light board, sometimes we get calls and
Yeah.
and it was preview day. So two people actually called me and asked, what's going on? Do you know you're on the light board? And I said, no, don't know.
I talked to a lot of people on my walk because of
You
exactly the
did.
reason. Pam Hill stopped me on the street. Like,
Oh.
hey, what's going on? What's
Right.
all right. Well, thank you for the updates. And we're going to go on to the rate hearing. Alice, do you mind helping me again with opening the rate hearing?
Sure. I move that we close the public session, this session of the light plant to go into a rate hearing on, where's my agenda? Uh-oh, it's pulling up quickly.
Yeah. 2024 proposed rates.
On the 2024 proposed rates to return to open session.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I see Becca's giving me a wave. Second. All right. So we've opened the rate hearing. And Dave, how would you like to proceed?
You guys has the board seen the red line versions that was attached to the agenda? I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, I have. It was in the PDF of the agenda.
Yeah. Everyone else, same scenario?
The one from the last time, or is this a new one?
These
Because all
are
of
the
the agenda.
red line tariff sheets that were attached in the agenda when it was sent out last week.
Yeah, let's see.
It's not a red line version that I have.
If you open up the agenda PDF, page 3,
Okay.
page 3 should be a red line version of the R.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Down
didn't
that
realize it. Yeah, okay. Yep.
why,
Thank you.
why don't you walk us through it?
Sorry.
Okay, so Laura put together the tariff sheets based on the last meeting. And, what we're trying to accomplish here is just to get the rates updated for January 1st, 2024. Laura, I don't know if you want to walk through each tariff sheet.
Sure.
or
Do you want to
not.
bring that update, or do you want me to share my screen?
I can do that.
Okay.
Give me a second.
So these rate sheets should conform to the previous board meetings presentation on rates and what they would be if we did not change the meter fee, which is what was agreed to by the board. So there are rate changes in each of the sheets, and in some cases there are some wording changes to help clarify or to remove superfluous and extraneous language. So for example, on the R1 rate, you'll see obviously the dates changed. Customer service and the finance group wanted us to add the wording that the rate is applicable to condominium units and condominium common area facilities, because sometimes there's some confusion about that. So we added that. And then at Dave's request, we removed a reference to fraternity and sorority houses because we don't think we have any of those. And I also expunged the including a separate white page telephone listing, since that seems rather outdated. It now just says, if you're a business and we can figure that out by any form of advertising, then you can't use this rate schedule. So these rates below, like I said, conform to the previous presentation that you were given without the customer increase. So the R1, you can see the very slight changes we're making to each element. For example, distribution goes from 0.06033 cents per kilowatt to 0.06182. The energy charge drops to 0.08792. And there are some very modest changes to the other tiered rates. Any questions on R1? Bianca?
No,
Um,
go ahead, Bianca.
okay, so this is not. Why are we talking about types of, so I thought that we were not going to mention okay, so no, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, this is when we looked at the rates that were proposed at our last meeting. This is the first column, the January 1st, 24 column, not the higher fixed rate C or D. This
Correct.
is what was.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just simply the same structure with updated numbers. And we're going through the old wording and maybe doing some wording changes, but there's none of the real changes we discussed are actually going through. So it's just in updated values.
This is the R1 time of use rate. And again, those rate changes down below correspond to the Excel spreadsheet that, or the Excel table that Brian's referring to. Same changes to the wording in the language. Any questions here?
No.
Okay, moving along.
Is here.
I'm sorry.
So you can get going, Laura.
Okay, here's the heat pump rate. Again, same wording changes and the corresponding rate changes below. This just matches the tier 1 R1 new rate. Exactly, 0.04116. That's what the special R7 rate is. It guarantees the lowest tier rate for all the usage on the heat pump in the winter. Okay, the ETS rate reflects that 368% increase in the ETS distribution from 0.00175 to 0.00820, such that the total charge, the 0.00820 plus 0.08792, results in a rate of 0.09613, which is a 5% increase over the current rate of 0.09155.
Now there seems to be a big change at the bottom about term of contract.
Yeah, Carol and I discussed this, and she pointed out that we really, in practice, it doesn't make sense to require people to take service under this for a minimum of 1 year. Number one, it's a highly preferential rate. So presumably, if you qualify for it, you would want it. It's not like you have to force people to stay on it. And secondly, we don't really have a need for a minimum term. So that language has been exchanged for the standard language that falls under the term of contract for like the R1 rate, which just says, it's subject to termination at any time.
And so this is compliant with all of our other rate schedules.
Yes.
Okay. The reduction. Yeah.
This is the water heater credit, and we had proposed, since we were way overvaluing it, that we would cut it almost in half from $19.66 per month credit to a $10 per month credit. Okay, G1, these reflect the rate changes that you saw earlier. There were no wording changes in the language. G2 is the only rate schedule you see here that does not match the schedule or the charges you saw before. Previously, we had said that the capacity charge for G2 would be 0.02943. And here you see it says 0.02731. That's because we caught an error when the optimization had been run. one of the inputs was not correct. It was reflecting the old distribution charge, not the new distribution charge. So when we put the new distribution charge in and reran it, the correct number is 0.02731 for capacity. G3 does match what you saw before. This is the commercial electric thermal storage heating rate, and it is exactly the same as the residential in terms of price, 0.00820.
And you also corrected the terms of contract.
Let's move forward, Dave, and see. Yes, correct.
And just a side question, how many, we have about 140 ETS customers. How many of those are commercial customers?
Less than 5.
Less than 5, okay.
Okay, the G4, the only thing that changed here besides the effective date was the updating of the distribution and energy charge to the 2024 rates. I didn't change anything else. We don't have anybody on this rate, by the way.
It's too bad. We worked.
Okay, the PCA, the change here is that we added language that says including expenditures for renewable energy certificates. Previously, the number, the 0.13122, did not include any expenditures for RECs. And it was rather laborious for accounting to keep adding the PCA, I'm sorry, the REC costs on top of the energy costs to come up with the rate to compare for return of money or collection of money from ratepayers relative to power supply expense. So for simplicity, we have decided that the PCA number in here, the 0.13269, includes the money we expect to spend on RECs. So now every month, when we look at what we spent, including expenditures for RECs, we'll compare that against this 0.13269. And to the extent we spent less on power than this, we'll return money to ratepayers. And to the extent we spent more than 0.13269, we would collect more money from ratepayers. So that's the purpose of the PCA.
Right. I making sure the PCA is generation and the certificates makes a lot of logical sense to me. It's generation. Bianca has a question.
So on this PCA, I think the last time we met, we were debating whether, we use because we have money to give back to ratepayers. Does that, do we, lower the rates this year or over the next several years to mitigate some of the other things? Now, my question is, one of the things that came up is that if we lower the rates now, then it's going to look like with time of use and the taxes, it looks like we raised rates when actually we didn't. I'm just wondering whether the PCA couldn't be given back to ratepayers as a line item refund on the bill rather than an adjustment to the,
So
the
when a PCA is applied, it is a separate line item on the bill.
Okay.
For example, when we raised when we collected a nickel to correct for the Ukraine war pricing changes, there was the rates, normal distribution, whatnot, but then there was a line item added that was the number of kilowatts times 5, and that was called the PCA. And that can also be a negative value. So that's it would already appear.
It would already show up like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, Laura, I have a question. So you're referencing, so this 13.269 cents. What does that represent? That represents power supply cost per kilowatt?
So that represents what we think we will end up paying for all power supply expenses in 2024, divided by the expected load. So that would include generation, capacity, transmission, fixed charges, anything that is collected in one of the 555 FERC accounts,
Okay,
basically ends up in this number.
yeah, anything that's not the cost of operating the plant.
Well, there might be there would be financial, other things affecting the income statement besides just the operations and just the power supply. You have things like the pilot and,
Yeah,
financial stuff, debt, interest payments, that kind of thing. So I don't want
okay.
to keep it simple
yes.
between two buckets.
All right. Any other questions on this? I don't see any, so you can go ahead and move on to the next.
That's
We're
all.
at the end.
That's all. All
We're
right.
at the end. So we would be looking for, I guess, Brian, input from board members and the public. And then to the extent, we don't, oh, I see Andy has his hand raised. You probably want to take public comment before you look at thinking about, accepting a motion to approve the
Correct.
tariff sheets.
Correct. I actually don't see someone's hand raised.
I see Andy Putrick's hand raised.
I don't.
Oh, okay, that's my hovering over Andy Putrick's box. And a little
Okay.
white hand appears. Sorry, Andy.
All right.
So I
The-
think at this point, we want to get input from the board and discuss that. And then if there's no input from the board, then we'd look to the public for comments. And then we would request that the board vote on the 2024 rates so that we can get them filed with the DPU and make the adjustments within the enterprise software package that we have. So they would actually be effective January 1st.
So in our last meeting, we had board discussion about the fixed collection, and we had discussion about the ETS percentage and resolve those for this vote. So I don't want to rehash that. I disagree with both of those, but the board as a whole has decided to just do a simple update to the rates without changes from last year. Is there any other board member that wants to discuss any portion of these rates before I move on to the public? Seeing none. Anyone from the public that would like to share an opinion about rates? I don't see any. So I think we're ready to move on to a vote. Pamela, you turned on your camera. Do you want to?
Quick comment. I'm in favor of keeping rates high because we need to use money for solar, heat pump, electric vehicle subsidies, and we need to start a subsidy for battery storage. And it's good to avoid rate shocks, so I'm in favor of keeping the infrastructure investments going.
Excellent. All right, thank you. All right, well, I'm not allowed to make the motion, correct, as chair? Alice, you're good at motions.
Thanks. I move that we approve the changes to the rates and the rate structure for all of those that were included in the agenda for this meeting as they are proposed.
And Warren, do you want a second?
I'll second.
Great. John?
Yeah.
Bianca?
Yeah.
Warren?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
And I agree as well. So we will make these changes and we will talk about them in Q1. All right. Next on the agenda.
Motion to,
Oh, we got to close the rate hearing.
yes.
Yes. Alice, do you mind making a motion to close?
I move that we close the rate hearing and return to open session of the Municipal Light Plant Board today.
Second.
and Bianca seconds. Warren,
Yes.
Bianca,
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I agree as well. Great. So we've closed the rate hearing and are back into our normal meeting. All right. So we're going to talk about the landfill solar town meeting article. And this is the solar task force has been doing a lot of work in regards to this, and Kearsarge is a great opportunity as well as a potential high school opportunity. But I want to pass the baton to Dean to present this to the light board and share his thoughts.
Thank you, Brian. Dean Banfield, 73 Walden Terrace, Chair of the Solar Task Force. We've been working since August on two basic priorities. The first priority for the task force really is to come up with a plan to get us to 20 megawatts total of in-town solar by 2030. And the second one is to look for projects that would kind of jumpstart that and be quick hits to build momentum. So I have a quick PowerPoint here that I'm going to go walk through. It should be brief. Hold on a second. Do I have a share screen capability, Brian?
You do.
Oh, Dave, thanks. Okay. Let me see if I can find my PowerPoint. It should be open. I got a million of them. Here we go. Okay, show that out. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Well, my screen had just went black, so let's see if I can recover from that. I just said go into full screen mode, and all my screens went black. So hold on one second, maybe I can recover from that. Okay, there we go. That's the best I'm going to do. I tried to put it in full screen, and my screen just went black. So wait, that's not. There we go. I think it's.
It looks good on our
It
end.
looks good.
Here we go. Okay, we're fine. We're fine. Seems one way or another. I don't know what it's kind of flipping back and forth. We're going to leave it where it is. Maybe it'll change. Anyway, so our main goal of the task force is really to create a plan and a schedule to get to our climate action targets. But within our charge, there's this sentence that you see here, which says, really find the places, at least one site, and get going, build some momentum, get the town back on track. So that's what this conversation is all about, and this year's town meeting warrant article is all about. So we went through a site selection process, which was really part of the larger planning process. And the CMLP network, as maybe some of you all know, has two bus bars. I've called it here for the purposes of the select board who don't think about things in a technical way. I just call them two main arteries. And one of them is solar saturated, but the other one has some headroom where about 2.5 megawatts is still possible without making major impacts on stability and reliability of the system. So within that particular bus bar, we look to further narrow the choices to sites that meet these three criteria. Pretty simple. Let's find easy ones to do. Let's find ones that are, low-hanging fruit and have the highest level of potential return, and also ones that we can do without having to get through an ornery process with the community who may not want to see panels in a particular location. We really first identified two sites. One is expansion areas over at the landfill, where in the original 2014 Kearsarge installation, a whole section of the landfill was really not addressed. Some of that had to do with the fact that the land surface has some slope on it, and at that time there weren't approved techniques for mounting on top of a cap and on a slope, because the stuff is usually put with big concrete mounts that just sit on top of the cap, and they were afraid that things would sort of drift down the slope over time and just slide. I believe that at this point, years later, several landfills slope areas have been implemented. So we're looking to see if we can take advantage of that area of the landfill as an expansion area. So that's one thing that we identified. And the other was an area at the high school, which is between the BD Center and the parking lot. There's a large open space. And that was originally engineered as a drainage catchment area because there are demands for runoff water. You're not allowed to push it off your site. So when the old school building was torn down, that was engineered to take water from the parking lot and from the runoff from the building. So there's some underground engineering that brings water to that swale, and there's just sheet flow that comes off the parking lot. But the thing rarely gets much water in it at all. And it's from the BD side, it's a very low slope, and there's really no water on that side. It's just sort of a downward slope into this hole, so to speak. So that's a very usable spot. It's already been engineered to do one thing, and this would be a dual use, which would be to put panels there. Had a little conversation with the school committee chairs and the superintendent, and there's a little reluctance there, but we're working on it. But they offered us a third location, and that was over at the high school, on top of the high school roof. So we've got 3 possibilities, but we haven't worked through the final details of all 3 of these. If we can pull off all 3 of these, that would be fantastic, but it's likely that we will get 1 and possibly 2 of these. The CCHS roof, which the school committee chairs suggested, is already pre-approved by a campus advisory committee who produced a report in 2018. And that report said that the building was built to be solar ready. It said that as soon as the light plant is in a position to accept the energy, go ahead and do it. It doesn't require any further suggestion of analysis. It's been, so to speak, pre-approved by that campus analysis that was done in 2018. So the CCHS roof is a very good possibility. Our ground mount offer there is because it's cheap to do. We can get a lot of energy out of that space, and it's a dual use of that space. So we'd like to see that, but the school committee may say, let's just do the roof. So we have 3 opportunities that we've identified as, we'll call them quick hits. If we do all 3 of these sites, we would add 2.44 megawatts to the system. That is right up against the 2.5 that we've identified as being the limits of what that bus bar can accept. So we've also added some structural improvements that would help position the whole distribution system to accept more solar, because we need to get much farther along than just these 2.44 megawatts. We need to keep building at least another 7 and 7 or so. So we've got to be able to push beyond the 2.44 that we're suggesting here. And to do that, we've added some pieces to the warrant article, which are command and control tools and some storage. We have 1 4 megawatt hour battery that can release the energy at a 2 megawatt clip. So those are the pieces of the puzzle, and here are the economics of how that works out. We've modeled the landfill solar at a little over 3 million. The CCHS ground mount, which is really the best bang for the buck in the whole system, because this is very basic ground mount. It's very simple to do. That's the best bang for the buck. The roof mount is the most expensive. It at 1.23 million, it looks less expensive than this landfill solar, but the return in terms of the energy is less per dollar spent. The control and monitoring, we have a number here that's a very rough number, but we think that's reasonable. And we took a Tesla battery, which comes in, if you literally go to their website and say, I want to give you my credit card and buy a 3.9 megawatt battery, they'll charge they'll put 2.188 million on your credit card, literally on the website. You can just push a button and say, I want to buy this now. We added 30% to that because there's going to be some connectivity. Maybe we'll need some control information or control hardware to go with that. So we added a 30% lift to that because we're not sure that all-in number that they quote is going to really take care of it. Those total up to a little over 8 million, 8.6 million. We added a small contingency in our modeling just to give us a little headroom. And so our warrant request is looking like 8.95 million. This is the text of the article we're proposing. This is basically the identical text to the CMS arrays and battery that was proposed and accepted by the town last year. The only section of this which is really different is if you come in here, I have changed for the design and construction of solar energy. I don't know if I can highlight here. We'll try this section right here. There you go. That was the new swap in. Otherwise, this text is basically what we did last year. Okay. I also added a small clause here, control systems, because we have that $600,000 item in there for like a command and control subsystem to manage batteries and other distributed energy resources. So that's our story, and I'm sticking with it. But the solar task force is really very pleased with the work that's happened so far, and we're looking forward to a positive level of support from the board.
Great.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing. I can leave that there, but I figure I'll stop sharing. Where's my mouse?
Yeah, well, Bianca has her hand up, so I'm gonna ask Bianca to ask her question.
I have two questions. One is, you mentioned this area at CCHS, but why not the parking lot? The parking lot, I think, is much larger, and frankly, already sort of let's call it an ugly area, you know.
Okay. Yep.
Not to say that, but a solar installation, I think, would make it look nicer. It also would provide some shade for cars in the heat of summer. And I was thinking that both the CCHS parking lot as well as the Crosby grocery store parking lot would be ideal places to have a fairly large solar installation. And I think would just it would just upgrade an ugly old parking lot. And then also solar, why not solar on top of the town center on Monument Square? I think that's a really tall building. It would seem like it would be ideal for solar. Maybe it's too small. And then my second question, or maybe that's third, is related to the debt. I know that there's been tension. That's all between the solar task force getting this done and the implementation of it. But why would the town take on the debt and not CMLP?
Okay, let me answer the questions in sequence and do my best with them. We've identified the areas that you've spoken of, the parking lot at CCHS, the parking lot Crosby's it's not a public space, so that's not on our list right now, but we have identified the parking lot behind Middlesex Bank, and the parking lot behind near Walden Liquors, et cetera, back in that area behind, Cafe Nero. So the reason that those are not on this list is because putting solar on canopies is much more expensive and less economically fruitful than putting it on a ground mount, or I'll give you some scale numbers. To build on a basic ground mount is about $1.50 per watt of energy that you're going to generate. That's a baseline for what in our area would cost to build on a ground mount. The landfill, because it's a little sloped, is a little more. We're thinking that's about $1.75 per watt. So that's why I said that the catchment area, the drainage area over at the high school is the best opportunity for energy. It's about $1. We think it's about $1.50 a watt to build in that space. We think it's about $1.75 a watt to build over on the landfill. To build on the top of a roof, you have to get people climbing up on roofs. You have to bring wires down through the thing. The installation is a little more complex. You have to work around all the equipment that's on a roof. That's about $2.50 a watt to install on a rooftop. When you build a whole superstructure on a parking lot, now you have a lot of structural steel and very expensive, footings. You have to dig up holes that are 5 to 10 feet deep to put the concrete in. That's $3.50 per watt. So it's somewhere between around 2.5 times as expensive to put it in parking lots, and it starts to become less economically reasonable to do it there. So that's why for these initial hits, we were looking at economically the most viable, the easiest to do. It's much easier to do these, and that's why these are on the list this year. Now, to return to your question about the debt, the town is the light plant is a department of the town. So the town is actually responsible for the debt. So in the end, if the light plant were to literally go belly up and we decided we're going to get all of our energy from now on from Eversource, we decide to extinguish our use of a municipal light plant, which we could do. The town meeting could vote to say we don't need a municipal light plant anymore. We want to just be an Eversource customer. The debt would still exist. And who's responsible for that? Somebody is the actual backstop for that, and that's the town. So the way this is legally written is that the town takes out the debt, but it also says that the revenue from the energy that we generate will pay for the retirement of the debt. So it does have a clause that does indicate where the payments will come for. So it looks like a revenue bond rather than just general obligation debt. So that's to answer that question. How am I doing here? Does that answer your questions?
Well, what is the benefit of having it be from the town rather than having it be under a debt that CMLP?
That the because the CMLP is an entity of the town. This is how it's done legally. Frankly, that's just the way it is. I'm just following the rules that were laid out last year when town council reviewed all this and bond council reviewed all this, and this is how it's done. So I didn't make this up. I literally just cut and paste from last year's warrant article, and this will be reviewed by town council and by bond council before the warrant closes. So that's the best I can give you on that score. But
So to simplify what Dean is saying is that this would be light plant debt, and the bonds are held by the town, which is normal for the process. So this would be something collected by rates to be paid for. So that's what the last sentence of this article is drafted to say.
Okay, so there's, I guess the reason I'm asking is, usually, well, I'm still trying to figure out why, and this is a bigger governance question, why it is that CMLP has struggled to get things done. And what we can do to make sure that CMLP does what the ratepayers wanted.
Yeah. So the solar task force came out of a citizens petition about that frustration about not doing the rate at which was first speculated in 2010, the rate of in-town solar efforts. So to your question about getting stuff done, that is what the solar task force is picking this one topic of in-town solar, and they're running with it, trying to help us get it done.
So I'm going to ask a pointed question to follow up on that, and I hope I don't step on toes doing so, but if I may. Does putting the debt on the town books put some teeth into this project that forces CMLP to do something that it otherwise would be dragging its feet to do?
My answer would be it is helpful. I view this article as making the ownership model of an array at the landfill or at the high school possible. It does not prevent us from doing a power purchase agreement where we work with a developer and they put up the capital. But this is a front of meter system. This is not a behind the meter system. This is not the schools funding the building of these arrays to get net metering value. This is the utility funding these arrays to get lower rates for ratepayers. So it's a front of meter system. Did that answer your question?
No, but I'm not gonna drag this out right now. We'll bring it up later.
To your point though, which is, is this going to quote make the light plant take action on this? By having this come to the floor of town meeting by having the town assert its will that it wants to see this done, that's a pretty strong message that the light plant needs to take action to build these things, because the town has said, yeah, let's do it. So I really, to your point, the whole idea here of the solar task force is to, as it were, build momentum. So this is why we're bringing it.
Warren, your thoughts?
Yeah, Dean, I thank your committee for its work. These seem like good and appropriate recommendations. My question is, have you determined what the rate impacts of the purchase of these systems would be? And are you assuming that the light plant would qualify for the direct pay tax credits?
To answer the questions in reverse order, the answer is yes, we have assumed that those direct pay tax credits would be available. It requires the town to get into a position where we are filing the appropriate tax forms. And I believe that Eric Sims has been working through that and making sure that the town is set up to file the appropriate tax forms so that we can qualify for these kinds of payouts level tax credits. So that's the second question. On the first question, there will be in the front end of the bond, quite likely some level of ratepayer impact, but it is modest. The level that was anticipated, just to give you a sense of scale, the CMS system that was proposed last year, the full ratepayer analysis was done. The town meeting approved it. There was a very small impact during the course of the bond retirement period. That system cost, I kind of ran the numbers very roughly, that system cost about $5 a watt to build, because as Bianca asked, well, why don't we do it in the parking lots? That's $5. That all-in number was about $5 a watt to build. The total of this set of systems that we are proposing, if you, even with a $600,000 control component, which is really not part of any of the energy, this one is about $3.56 a watt to build out. So on a per watt basis, the ratepayer impact would be less. On an aggregate basis, because this is 8.9 million and that was 7.5 million, on an aggregate basis, it may actually turn out to be about the same ratepayer impact during the bond retirement cycle as that system was. We haven't finalized that analysis yet, but that's probably likely.
Yeah, I want to share with Warren, sorry to cut you off, Warren. I want to just make sure the board understands that this is a draft article that would be placed on the warrant. And as we go towards the hearings and other such, all these details will be worked out, and the board has to later in the process vote to support or not support this article. So not all the details are going to be ironed out at this point. But this is a good rough draft, and I've suggested, and the task force has agreed to kind of pad these numbers so that as we refine this, get real numbers, get real, spend some time with SDA on consulting with these numbers, that they get more refined and they go lower instead of raising them before we go to town meeting.
Yeah, one of the things that could happen as this goes forward is that elements of this may not come to pass. The reason we've put these 3 possible systems on the list is that any one of them may need to be dropped from the list before we end up at town meeting, in which case we'll slice that line item out of the dollar number and that'll just go away. So for example, the landfill is not fully confirmed yet that slope mounting system will work on the slope steepness that we have. So when we finally confirm that and we work with Solar Design Associates and we finalize that can be done, that'll stay on the warrant. But if we come to a final conclusion that, the mounting hardware has been identified and the company that does this says your slope is way too steep, we can't do it, that whole system will be sliced off and the whole project list will come down. So that we'll refine all of this in the next number of months as we move forward. as Brian said.
Warren, did you want to do it? I cut you off
No,
before and
no, that's fine. Thank you.
okay. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just interested in terms of, as part of this rate impact assessment, who will be doing that? I'm hoping that,
I expect that we'll be working very closely with Laura.
Okay.
Our committee has a liaison from the light plant defined as the director or his assignee, and Laura's been very helpful. She did a great job on the CMS rate impact analysis, so I expect we'll be just working through that with her.
great. And, I'd be, keen to participate in that effort as well.
No problem. We'll be happy to have you join in. No big deal.
Great. Yeah, I want to share my thoughts. When I first saw this draft of the article, I had talked about maybe we should separate these by property. The task force disagreed with that because I was afraid that the schools would be upset and thus the landfill wouldn't get funded because they were in one article, not two. So that they decided to keep them together. The other concern I had was about governance and who can put on the warrant something that affects ratepayer, repayment through ratepayers. I thought that only the town manager or the light board could put a thing on the warrant that requires repayment through revenue. But that I was clarified and that is not the case. So the solar task force can be the sponsor and can move this through as long as the select board agrees to put it on the warrant. And the thought is the select board wouldn't do that if the light board was against this warrant, which I don't feel we are.
And I don't believe, frankly, I don't believe that the solar task force would push to, over the objections of the light board, it would push to put something on the warrant. It would not be a good look. Let's just put it that way.
We're all trying to get solar.
We're all trying to get it done. That's our sole mission, is to try to get it done over the solar task force.
Correct. Any other board comments or thoughts? We're just reviewing this. I don't feel that we need to do a vote yet. I just wanted to get this in front of the board, make sure they understood it was going on. And then when it appears on the warrant, you won't be surprised, and you'll have an opportunity now to give your thoughts if you want the solar task force to consider them for changes prior to the warrant. Alice.
I just wanted to thank Dean and the group. This is an amazing amount of work that you've done in the last 6 months to be able to do this kind of analysis. And it has been a long time coming.
Just an update on that, Alice. We've only been working since late August. We were stood up in late August. So this is not 6 months worth of work.
Okay.
This has been a run.
Okay. All right. So you're doing the yeoman's work in even less time. But it's a really valuable assessment. It has taken us a long time to get this back on the agenda and see if we can make some headway in getting new solar developed. So I really appreciate the work of the task force. And I think, I'd like to see this go forward. So that's great.
Great.
And for those who are asking, that the reason you bring it to town meeting is that it requires, as the committee, is to get the town's interest and willingness to pay for these kinds of investments and improvements to our systems in town. So it does become a mandate. If town meeting were to approve this, it becomes a mandate both for the town and for CMLP to move forward at the legislative body. The town meeting be the legislative body.
All right. Mary, as our select board liaison, your thoughts.
Thank you, Brian. I think you described the process going forward pretty well, which is the select board actually will look at this article at our December 18th meeting. That's next Monday, and decide whether to put it on the warrant or not. And the gate that we look at is there a source of funding? So if I think it's important that we do know if CMLB is behind this. Because remember, the warrant closes January 3rd. We're meeting December 18th. So I was kind of hoping that I would get a sense of the board today.
All right. I'm going to take a public comment from Pamela, and then we will do a quick check in with the board to see
Thank you.
each of their final thoughts.
Thank you.
Pamela?
Thank you. I agree that Bianca's question is something everybody will think. When the debt obligations are taken on by the town and they will be paid by CMLP, but people will think that their property taxes will increase. And we need to make sure that people know that this warrant will not increase our property taxes. It will be paid for through our energy. This investment will be paid through our energy costs, and it will be save us money in the long run. This will pay us back. Unlike just spending money, this will pay us back.
All right. Thank you.
It also will do the things that we don't get financially rewarded for, like preventing climate change.
Great. You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pamela. Yeah, so final thoughts from the board. My thoughts are having this article on the warrant opens up the option for an ownership model of these sites for these installations. It does not prevent a PPA. It doesn't prevent other avenues from doing it. It also provides feedback from the town on these sites on whether or not they want to see an array at these sites. So I'm in favor of putting this on the warrant. Dean says, you know, it's town debt, but I would rather he change that language to being, you know, it's light plant debt, because though they are treated the same, the ratepayers are going to repay this, and that's what people need to understand. And so this is a good project. The number I feel is high for what it's actually going to end up being, but that is good because we don't know what it's going to end up being. And as we go along to town meeting, I feel that we should be able to lower that number before the hearing. And that's my thoughts. I was going to go around to the board, but Laura, you have a comment.
Yeah, I noticed before the board's deliberating this, you haven't asked staff our thoughts or opinions at all about this.
I apologize for that.
You know, my thoughts are that I would be concerned about the level of due diligence that has been put into the economics of this. You know, I think the task force has done what they could sort of quickly to put something together, but I do have some concerns. For example, that battery cost by going to the Tesla website and putting your credit card on. When we modeled a 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour battery, previously at the middle school, we modeled a $5 million all-in cost, which includes things like the interconnect, the inverter, not the inverter, the transformer, engineering, balance of plant, all that stuff, right? That adds to the cost. We had 5 million versus the 2.8 that's in the warrant article number. Also, Dean, other than saying it wouldn't have much of a rate impact, didn't really go through the net present value on whether these are money savers or not. Pamela Dritt says, oh, it's going to save us money in the long run. Well, I think you need to take a closer look at what those economics actually are to understand what the rate impacts are before you could possibly vote on this. That's just my opinion.
To that point, Laura, we have actually run net present value numbers, and for all of these, the net present value is positive. On the roof, it's very modest, and we did use an 11-cent number, which we've had back and forth conversations with you about using 11 cents as a value for the energy. So we're doing that work, and we expect to continue, and we're not going to end up at the town meeting without having done a very detailed job and working with you on it.
And Laura, the board is going to rely on your analysis of this as we go along the road to town meeting. So this is not This is not a vote to put this on the warrant because we know everything that we're going to do. This is getting it on the warrant because of a deadline.
Yes.
And as we go through the process, the board is not voting to say we want to support this all the way through to the vote at town meeting floor. This is a vote of, is this good enough to place on the warrant, or to not object to the solar task force placing this on the warrant, and with more work to be done. So your concerns are valid, and we definitely will be working with you and staff to verify the numbers and the return and the impact. Do you have any other thoughts, Flora?
No, I mean, I don't think the numbers are way off, except maybe the battery. But there are things that need to be, I've looked at the models with Wendy. Wendy's been very helpful in trying to co-opt us in so that we have some visibility. I haven't seen all the details, but I looked at the ground mount for the high school, which is actually net present value positive, as Dean alluded to, it being the best financial opportunity because of its lower capital cost. But there are definitely some tweaks that need to be made. You know, things like you're not going to get the IRA money day one, you know, it's going to be a period of time, and things like that, you know, probably need to be tweaked. So I'm just hesitant to talk about rate impacts before we've really run through the numbers.
I wasn't going to offer any numbers on rate impacts. I was just going to say, the only comment I can make is that in terms of the number of watts that this is going to generate versus the amount of money that we're going to put out, it's a much better value than what we just did last year at CMS per watt. And so therefore, on a per watt basis, the rate impact almost by definition has to be less per watt than what was done at CMS.
But we'll get to the specifics in the next couple of months.
Yep.
Alice, your thoughts on this article?
I think that this article advances our quest for greater solar in town. So my general, without going through the detailed analysis or the impact on rates, my general sense is we should bring this to town meeting as a discussion for the town meeting members.
Okay.
So I would support it.
Warren, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say for the reasons folks have said, given the town's solar goals, I don't see how we couldn't put this on the warrant. And it's a different question whether the article should pass.
Correct.
And we're far away from deciding whether the article should pass, but it should certainly be there and be up for debate and be up for getting more information so we could make a firm decision about whether it ultimately passes muster or not.
Great, thank you. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with the sentiments that are being expressed, as well as Laura's. I really feel like it's important that the board do appropriate due diligence with respect to the rate impacts associated with this. Dean had mentioned 11 cents. I'm assuming that that's a benchmark of the value of the energy. Frankly, for someone who practices in the industry, that 11 cents seems quite high to me.
I can break that down if you'd like, but you know,
it's not necessary now.
Okay,
I mean, I
that's
think
fine.
right that's core to the analysis.
Yep.
And I think that you know that's going to be a critical number, which I think additional analysis is appropriate to support such a number. But and we don't need to get into it here. But you know,
Yeah.
so.
The analysis for the middle school was a comparison of the solar PPA that were recently been offered, and it was comparing that PPA from solar down in Connecticut to an in-town installation at the middle school, and I think that was a good approach to valuing these kinds of projects, is comparing them to what could we buy outside of town, and all the fees that go along with transmitting that power and so forth.
I guess I don't want to get into that, but
Yeah.
the other thing to think about is what's the ultimate value of power? Because the PPA price is the market price. But
Mhm.
if you didn't have that PPA, what would be the value? You know, what's the value of RECs? What's the value of energy that you're displacing? I think that that's an alternative perspective that needs to be considered as well.
That's the approach that we took, which is kind of using a base number for the value of the energy, adding the value of the REC that we would retire, and then some kind of very squishy number, which we need to really look through, which is the displaced value of delivery charges, transmission and forward capacity that the solar might potentially generate. So you add those three pieces together and you end up with some number of the valuation. And we're working with a rough number of 11, but if that's too high, then we can adjust. And that conversation's been going on with Laura recently, just in the last few days.
Bianca, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I love the project. My only concern is that, and I'm going to defer this to everyone else, but I just want to voice the concern that I think the residents may take this as taking on debt that would be repaid through property tax. There might be some confusion there. So my preference would be to put this, find a way to put it through town meeting to be explicit that this would be a project that the town is asking CMLP to take on. But that, you know, I'll defer to the rest of you guys. I think this is a terrific project. I want to support it. My only concern is like, shoot, we get to town meeting, people get confused. This gets voted down, then what?
Right.
I think we can make it clear that this is effectively a revenue bond. This legal language has to be the way it is. In other words, the town always has to be the final backstop of how this debt gets paid off. But the fact that the final sentence says this will be paid for through revenues of the light plant, and we will make that abundantly clear in any presentation that this is not increasing taxes.
We have language that basically says that, and we do that in all our borrowings. They go to the meeting, so you know I can share that language with the committee. But it's very clear that it's light plant borrowing, and the only way it's a town liability if the light plant went out of business.
If the town were to decide to extinguish the light plant, as I said, and just start buying its energy from Eversource directly or distributing that's really the only model.
To close this up, Dave, your thoughts on the article as the process.
So I've been attending the task force meetings and following along. If we want to do a project on one of these three locations, I think you need to get this on the warrant. And while the numbers seem a little high, but they can be adjusted along the way. So I don't necessarily have an issue with it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think this has been a good discussion. I hope Mary, Dean, and Charlie and all of them feel this is helpful. And Laura, we appreciate all the work that's going to be coming to you to help with this analysis and helping us understand the value of this project.
Dean, could you send me your presentation so I can include it in the minutes?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I had sent that to the board and copied you and Laura. Dave.
So I already have it?
Yeah, you may have it already.
Yeah, I sent it to Brian like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah,
Okay, I must have missed that.
I sent it out to the board. So let's see, where's my agenda? So we are on time, ahead of schedule. So a public and liaison comments. Does anyone want to raise their hand? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Great. And I see Alice as a second. So Warren?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Bianca?
Yes.
Alice? I see a yes, and I agree as well. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You.